All right. Well, welcome everybody, and we are blessed to have here to have Brian Young speak with us. I just heard him speak at the Twin Cities Creation Science Association meeting last week, and saw a ping pong ball go through an aluminum can, and saw him hold nitrogen, and it was just a lot of. I saw him gargle liquid nitrogen, and he held hydrogen. That's what it was. Just a lot of fun. So he's got a great way of reaching kids, and he's the director of the Boneyards Creation Museum in Broken Bow, Nebraska, which is top notch. It's not a big museum, but whatever it has, it is first class. So it's well worth the drive to get there. It should be on everyone's bucket list. And he's also the founder of the Creation Instruction Association, and that would be at creationinstruction.org, I believe. And so he's going to share some thoughts about the hydroplate. So welcome aboard, Brian. I'm so glad that you have made time to be with us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're celebrating Walt Brown and his hydroplate theory. And how did you find out about that?
It has been years and years ago. I couldn't even tell you. I would say at least 20 years ago.
Wow.
I would carry his book in the beginning. And when we had that on our table and they would sell, I had so many people coming back and telling me that that was one of the best books that they had ever read. And it really explained a lot of things for them. And so that's kind of probably the first introduction that I had was just his book in the beginning. And so kind of just went from there. And it was just such a wonderful book to explain so many different things that hadn't been addressed in some ways. And throughout the last 20 years, we've seen so many of those predictions and the things that he's been talking about, I think even growing more and more and more, so that the books that are hopefully coming out soon will have so much more information. And I think it's only gotten better and proven to be accurate throughout these 20 years. So oftentimes we see throughout 20 years, things kind of go by the wayside, and it's maybe not quite as accurate as it was or what we thought it was. But I think in this case, it's only become more and more, I guess the predictions have become more and more accurate.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's probably talking about the eighth edition here. Yeah, it's so much fun. I do go hydroplate surfing. You just start reading, and then it leads you to a footnote, and leads you to another thing, and it's just a really, really comprehensive way of, seeing how the world works, and it's just so well sourced. And you're right about the predictions. The more predictions you make, the stronger the theory is, and the fewer the assumptions you need, and that's pretty strong too. And so people have enjoyed it. I know it's one of the people, even at St. Cloud State, the students really enjoy thinking about it. And yeah, and so that's been a blessing. And have you had any of his interviews, Walt Brown? Have you had any interaction with him, or the videos that come to mind?
Yeah, I haven't personally. I think I talked to him once,
Wow.
again, probably 20 years ago, but over the phone call, it was all it was. And that's as much interaction as I had with him personally. But just kind of reading his book and the videos and things like that he's had, those are the things that probably got to know him more through the book and his video. We show a video clip of him, Horrors of the Flood,
Oh yeah.
at the museum,
Oh yeah.
and that just a short, concise thing that gives people an idea of what his theory is about. And again, when we talk about his theory, it lines up with scripture. And that's what's neat,
Yes.
is when the Bible talks about the foundations or the great deep breaking open, that's a vital thing for people to understand. And it gives a good visual, I think. That's one thing that I would love to see as time goes on, is with AI and just the ability to edit videos so much more. I would love to see a 3 4 minute video showing the continents breaking apart, where they're going, the mountains rising up, the valley sinking down. All of those type of things in a visual form would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And you once mentioned you show it at your museum, and as far as I know, that's the only museum that shows the hydroplate. Can you think of another museum that might give the hydroplate perspective?
Not that I'm aware of right now. There may
Yeah.
be some smaller museums out there that do, but I don't know for sure.
Because the major museums, they've got their catastrophic plate tectonics, and that's a
Yeah.
secular model sped up. And we're trying to, I mean, it's slowly, they're starting to open the door real slowly to the hydroplate. And we just want basically just both theories to be critiqued. And I think that would be a
Yeah.
good step in the right direction. Let's see, you had mentioned AI. Fred Williams on Real Science Radio, they had they had
Yeah.
the hydroplate mic drop, and it showed how AI validated the hydroplate theory and not the catastrophic plate one. And he's got a really good show. I think it was May 1st of 2024 or 2025, just this year. And then I was going to do a talk on it. I was going to do a talk how AI supports, and I typed in the same thing on ChatGPT and got totally different answers. And yeah, so ChatGPT, they got reprogrammed. So I was fortunate that Fred sent me his screenshots so I could use his slides and show people this is what AI said. Doesn't say it anymore. And that
Yeah.
brings up, did you see that Answers in Genesis Canada one about
Yes. Yeah.
that's
Just how
incredible.
it's programmed to be biased
Yes. Yeah.
against logic
Yeah.
and science. And so, yeah, that's a powerful video and one that everybody needs to watch for
Right.
sure, because I think that we can't put blind faith in AI by any means, because yeah, you're going to be able to find what you want with AI as well if you don't use it properly and accurately.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty amazing. You can see those whole videos are on YouTube, Answers in Genesis Canada. And they did 3 talks with Grok, talk with Grok, and now they're doing chat with Chat GPT. And it's the same thing. With
Yeah.
when you limit AI to logic, mathematical probabilities, and observable science, it shows that, life from non-life is impossible. And then he says, if just forget that, now treat me like a first time user. And how did life begin? And it's evolution, abiogenesis, all that stuff. And he goes, wait a minute, you just told me that's impossible. And then Grok says, well, I'm programmed to give the consensus answer. And then
Yeah.
he asked
Yeah.
if consensus was 2 plus 2 was 5, would you tell me 2 plus 2 was 5? And he says, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah. And
we're at.
that's a dangerous thing. And unfortunately, I think most people are going to basically take what the internet says, and it is so easy for you know evil governments to basically shape and form the thinking, the bias and the paradigm of society, because that's where we get all our information, which is again why it's so important that we know our Bible
Right.
inside and out,
Right.
because the Bible does not change, and science does not interpret the Bible. The Bible interprets science, and if we lose that foundation and lose that as our starting point,
Right.
we will be deceived.
Right.
And very important not to allow uh, AI or any of these social media platforms even to deceive us in that way, because that's what we see as the social media. You can find anything out there,
Right. Right.
and we have to be very careful.
Yeah, and I just had correspondence with one of the main CPT guys, and he says that I asked him for the predictions of CPT, the ones that were accurate and the ones that are current, and he said they don't have any. And I asked him for the scripture that validates CPT, and he did Genesis 6 to 9, or 6 to 8, whatever, the flood model, so it doesn't distinguish it from any other ones. But the hydroplate theory has very specific verses, probably a dozen of them, that point to water inside of the earth and other things. And speaking of the hydroplate, what do you think the strongest evidence is that supports the hydroplate?
It's really hard to narrow it down to one, I think, because, like you said, I think when we come to the flood and the fountains of the earth breaking open, the waters inside, I think those are some really um, solid evidences from the Bible that we see are being supported in science when it comes to, just what we see. And in some cases, I think even CTP, the catastrophic plate CPT, catastrophic plate tectonics, some of them join, but it's the mechanisms and things like that that are different. We do see that similarities, but they are different. And I think it's easy to kind of confuse the two if you don't
Sure.
know them real well. But at the same time, I think that what we're seeing from asteroids in astronomy is some of the strongest things that we're seeing,
Yes.
looking at it from a scientific perspective. The fact that we are finding amino acids
Yes.
and organic material on asteroids. There's no reason for that outside of that these are things that have come from the earth to begin with at the time of the flood. And to really think about the fact that, did asteroids come after creation or during the creation days? Why would God, during his creation days, put something that could be destructive and, doesn't, it's evidence of destruction. It's not very good that we would see at the end of the sixth day of creation. And so I think that the fact that those must come after creation demands an explanation. Where did asteroids come from? And I don't feel like that's been answered by any other theory, CPT or any others. Answers in Genesis. I don't feel like we have a good explanation outside of the hydroplate theory as far as their origin and why we're finding organic life. Now they'll say that we can have bacteria that has been taken into outer space through light waves and things like that. I don't remember exactly how they said it, but the amount that we're finding and in what form we're finding it makes no sense outside of coming from the water and the earth from underneath the ground. So to me, that's probably one of the strongest that you don't even see a hint of really on other theories.
Yeah, and I would agree. Those NASA discoveries are just validating, hydroplate theory over and over and over again. It's a cliche, all scientists work for Walt Brown, and whenever they find something new, it's like, well, yeah, that's explained by the hydroplate theory. So and Kevin Lee is just an expert on that. I'm really looking forward to that interview because he's got the expertise to see what NASA's finding and shows how it can't happen by the Big Bang.
Mhm.
So the hydroplate has a lot of things going for it. How do you think we could get this into help it get more traction so more people can find out about it?
Well, I think first and foremost, getting that next edition of In the Beginning out in the hands of the public is going to be most important. That those are books that people should be buying and handing out, and getting into as many hands as possible because uh, ignorance, we can talk about these theories all we want, but until you really kind of see the scientific evidences that are there, if you see some of that, people just don't know. And I think another thing is it's very important is that we have to be united as Christians,
Yeah.
and it's okay to have different theories.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
agree.
that I don't think that we're going to do any good if we kind of try and say, well, this is what I believe, and so I'm not going to be welcoming to some of these other theories that are
Right.
out there. And if that's the case, then we're just fighting amongst each other and seeing, who can come out on top. That's not our goal. Our goal should be to get truth.
Right.
And so I would love to see some of these other larger creation organizations out there say, hey, this is our theory, but here's another theory
Yeah.
that's out there. To
Right.
even present it like that, because, a theory is a theory.
Right.
And I don't want to be dogmatic about anything outside
Yeah.
of what scripture says.
Right.
And I would love to see us just be able to say, uh, yes, this is what I believe, but here's another theory that's out there. I do that in my ministry all the time,
Yeah.
that we have to say, here's a few different theories.
Yeah.
This is the one that I like.
Right.
You guys go do your research and
Yeah.
find out. And I think I'm confident that if people will do that, they're going to see that Walt Brown's book, hands down, seems to explain a wide range of
Oh,
things
yeah.
compared to just a
Oh,
very
yeah.
focused part on
Right.
geology. Um, so I think it's just about educating people.
Yep.
And we do that by being open-minded a little bit and
Yes.
not trying to protect our own worldview and our own biases. Uh, that we need to be united and say, let's look at all the evidence. Otherwise, I used to say all the time, um, we can't indoctrinate people, and indoctrination is only basically taking one of the ideas and pushing that, where education is taking all the things that are out there, presenting what there is, and letting the people decide. Evolution has been indoctrinating people. They don't allow people to even look at any sort of creation theory at all. Whereas I think that some of these organizations might be doing that same thing, just on the other side of it, is saying this is our theory and we're not allowing any other creation theories in there.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think Walt Brown he quoted Thomas Chamberlain, who was 100 some years ago. He said that there should always be multiple working hypotheses so that people can think
Yeah.
critically. If there's just one, then they just memorize and conform. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we need. We need multiple working hypotheses. And that's what we need. We need to compare the CPT with the HPT. And that's what I thought the first domino would need to be to fall. But now I'm realizing the first domino that needs to fall is that people need to be able to think outside of the club, think outside of the paradigm.
Yeah.
People have
Pride.
to be able to look at the hydroplate theory, just ask questions about it and not fear being thrown out of their CPT club. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think that that's the first domino that needs to fall. We need to have the freedom to think and compare and not worry
Yeah.
about any professional repercussions over it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's kind of drives the flesh. Pride, money. These are things that we have to say we don't care about either of those things, and maybe I'm wrong on this, and that's okay. But I think
Right.
that we too often try to protect a certain belief system, and we're not willing then to go outside of that.
Yeah.
And I think humility will take us a long ways in getting truth
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And so we need to be humble and just say, even if I don't really like this idea, it's just like when I go out and teach, people ask me, do I teach evolution? I say, absolutely, I teach evolution. I teach that it's wrong,
Yeah.
but people need to know what evolution teaches before you can accurately defend or go against it. And so most people that I meet don't really know what evolution teaches. They just are parroting what they've heard all the
Oh
time
yeah. Oh
because they're
yeah.
uneducated.
Oh yeah.
They're uneducated in evolution. They're uneducated in creation. They just are parroting, you know, things that they've heard.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing for creationists. They need to be very careful not to do the same thing on the creation side of it. And we need to be educated. To be educated, you need to know catastrophic plate tectonics. To be educated, you also need to know hydroplate. And if you don't know both of those, then I don't know if you're really worth listening to,
Well,
because then both of us are doing the same thing, the evolutionists and the creationists. I'm convinced that when you have all the information, the truth rises to the top. The
right.
cream rises to the
Right.
top.
Right. I would agree. I heard a creation speaker, and during Q&A, I asked him, "What do you think of the hydroplate?" And he said it doesn't work. And I asked him why not, and he said it breaks laws of physics. And I asked, "Well, which laws of physics?" And he says, "I'm not sure, but the geologists that he knows don't go along with
Mm.
hydroplate." And so they're putting their and it's clear that some of those experts, they really don't have a good understanding of what the hydroplate theory is based on the questions they ask. And so that those experts are, misinforming a lot of creation speakers. And so I think you're right. I think people need to look at the theory and they need to think for themselves. And even, like when I'm giving talks too, there's certain things that like those, like, some big organizations, they say don't talk about the dinosaur footprints at Glen Rose, or don't talk about this or
Yeah.
that or the other thing. And I say, well, this is what's out there.
Yeah.
This is what some people say, go check it out for yourself. I think censorship does not help. And I think you should see both sides. It's like that one saying, beware of one hand clapping. There's two sides to every story. But if you only hear one
Yeah.
side of the story over and over and over again, it's probably because the truth is being censored by those who can do it. And
Yeah.
so I spend a lot of time at colleges, and the students know what to think, but they really don't know how to think. And so we
Yeah.
just ask them questions. Where was I yesterday? But anyhow, it's like, we just help them see that they're getting a blind chance perspective of the past. One of the questions was, should students get all the information to make informed decisions? And everybody agrees, yeah. And I said, well, is that happening in the science class? And it's no, you're getting a blind chance
Yeah.
perspective. And I'd say, it's like that building. Did that get put together by chance? And they say, no, it'd be absurd. And I said, well, how much more absurd to think our bodies got put together by chance? And then you could see the wheels turning in their heads sometimes. It's like, oh, they never considered that. But I think some well-placed questions can help people figure out, what the truth is. Because if
Yeah.
they aren't answered properly, they don't go away. And my prayer is that it wakes
Yeah.
them up at night.
And
But
I think that we need to just encourage people to get off their social media and get in the Bible and get into looking at things that, matter rather than the next funny video.
oh
I
yeah,
think that Christianity, we're becoming complacent as far as searching out truth. And as a result, we're easily swayed into, just about anything. And so I think that it starts there, that people need to, I guess, pay attention to what really matters in this life, and not all of the nonsense. It might be funny, it might be entertaining, but there's more to life than that, and that's not why we are here to, just go about life entertained and amused. I mean, the very word amuse means to not think.
right.
Uh, and I think that we are being trained to be amused,
Mhm.
and we are in danger because of that. And unfortunately, I don't see us moving in the right direction. We've continued to move downhill for the last number of years, probably decades, along that line. And so just challenge people to even make a commitment to say, I'm going to start looking at things that better me rather than just wasting my time being amused. Walt Brown's book will
Oh yeah,
definitely help you with that.
oh yeah,
But first and foremost, the Bible.
oh
Need
yeah.
to be in the Word. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And I think we should challenge our churches to equip the young people better to stand up to the evolutionary teaching. Because we had
Yeah.
our very first college creation science club on Tuesday, and there was somebody there that grew up in the church, went to all the camps, did all this stuff, and asked, well, what happened to the dinosaurs? So there was never anybody with a microphone that told them the young Earth perspective. And so I
Yeah.
think churches have to do a better job because, kids have good questions, but they're not getting good answers. And so I
Yeah.
heard of this one that she, asked about dinosaurs and didn't get a good answer. So she concluded either dinosaurs are false or Adam and Eve are false, when
Yeah.
actually the thing that's false is millions of years. So we need to really do a better job. And I had a table at an event where there was a whole bunch of Christians. It's like, well, what question do you ask Christians? And I asked them, when did dinosaurs live? And millions of years, thousands of years, and millions of years, 81 to 51. So we're
Yeah.
not getting it. And because of that, they're not equipped to stand up to the secular, questions in college. We're supposed to be ready always to give an answer, and that we don't have we're not equipping them with the answers. There's a lot of them. Ken Ham wrote a book, Already Gone, where 61% of the students, 61% of church kids stop going to church once they leave home. And then that went
Yeah.
up to 69, and some denominations it's 90%. And they asked, well, why did you leave? And they said, well, they basically doubted the Bible was true. And then they asked, well, when did you begin to have the doubts? And it was mainly junior high and high school. That's when the Big Bang and evolution are being rammed down their throats. And there's so many, so it's a blind chance perspective. It makes no sense, and it's based on lies and
Yeah.
fraud.
Well, and even his book, his sequel to that, was Already
Oh
Compromised,
yeah,
which basically was,
yeah,
that they're gone because they were compromised earlier on, and we're seeing that our universities, our
yes,
schools,
yes.
uh, even the
Christian universe.
seminaries,
Yeah,
yeah, Christian universities, the
yeah,
seminaries, they're the ones that have let the ball drop and are not doing what they're supposed to be doing and truly educating. And that's why people don't have the answers
yeah.
in Christianity. And so, again, uh, we just have to keep being, I guess, faithful ourselves and standing up for truth, providing these answers. And not to say that the gospel isn't the most important thing, because it certainly is.
Yeah.
But I think churches have forgotten that the gospel goes far beyond Jesus died on the cross for you. Now repent and believe. Yes, very important, but most people aren't going to believe that statement unless you first give them some other foundations to believe. And we see that model being used even in the scriptures when Paul is going out, and we see that he ministers, even Peter ministers differently to the Jews than he does to the Gentile. When they were Gentile thinking in their mindset, they didn't just go and say, "Hey, let me tell you about Jesus who died on the cross." They go right to creation and
Yeah.
giving answers first. Then they take him to the cross. If they went to the Jew, the person who already had their ABCs of Christianity and knew that God was their creator, goes right to the cross.
Yeah.
And that is the model that is used scripturally time and time and time again. And we kind of need to do the same thing. And we're preaching to a Gentile thinking
Yeah.
society using Jewish
Yeah.
evangelism methods. And
Yeah.
let me just tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you about the
Yeah.
Messiah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. When I meet them on campus, they don't believe in God. It's like, okay, we'll play in your ballpark. How did life
yeah,
begin? They don't have a
yeah,
clue. And it's like, well, if you don't have a clue how life began, how do you know God didn't do it? And yeah, it's a definite battle out there. And the
yeah,
hydroplate theory answers so many of those questions, and some of the kids, they get excited about it. I mean, even the other day we had a table at the, Creation Science Club that wasn't allowed at their club thing. So I was across the road in the free speech thing, and people came up and I'm talking to him and he goes, "Man, this is exciting." And it is because people want to think. In school, they're
yeah,
forced to memorize. They just got one perspective and they just memorize it. They need to think, and this hydroplate theory really gets people thinking. And
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. Well, I think we've covered all the bases. Probably,
Sounds good.
probably went down some rabbit trails but that's all right. I think
Yeah.
that I know there was a verse too. You were talking about the Bible and stuff and witnessing. Jesus said, "If I told you earthly things and you believe not, how shall you believe if I tell you of heavenly things?" And in Mark
Hmm.
10:6, he says, "But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female." So there's no millions of years, there's no billions of years. And when people try and squeeze that into the Bible, it pretty much tells everybody God didn't do what he said, or he didn't mean what he said. And then people just to learn that, it's like, well, maybe he didn't mean what he said about marriage or gender or sin, and it just opens the door to it's a slippery slope leading to destruction. So I think
Yeah.
we as a church and Christians need to stand strong on what Jesus did. He's our example. And he never had any millions of years. He didn't have any question about what a day was. And so we need
No.
to stand strong on it. And if your churches are not strong on it, encourage them to get strong on it, or find a church that is strong on it, because this is the battle. I think there's a battle between the world's a mess, right? That's easy to agree on. And that's because there's a battle between God's truth and Satan's lies in every area. And I believe that the ground zero for this battle is creation versus evolution.
Yeah.
If whoever wins that battle, is going to have a lot of this control with what's in the future. And if we win it, that a lot of those issues will go away. And right now, I'm so excited because we have more evidence against the Big Bang and evolution than ever before. Everything
Yeah.
they're finding. And then we have this information is more easily accessible than ever before with the internet. And now there's some talented animators out there that break it into bite-sized people so it's more understandable. Plus
Yeah.
we got the hydroplate, which is making accurate predictions. And so we've got everything that we need to make an impact to win this thing. We just need more people getting informed. And
I
so,
think I think that's important too, to realize that Walt Brown, when we think about that, or the hydroplate theory that it's just about a science thing. uh, Walt understood the gospel, and that's what this was all about for him as well. It wasn't just so that you
yeah,
could understand science. It was
yeah,
so that you could understand the Bible, and that
exactly.
the Bible is truth. And so that's the purpose and the goal of, I would say, most all of the creation ministries that are out there, is to let science point you to Christ, even though we don't let science interpret Christ and the Bible,
Yeah.
it does help people understand, oh, well, maybe I better take this Bible more seriously. It's laying that foundation for the gospel to be heard and then understood. And so when we talk about his book and the hydroid plate theory, this isn't just a battle about science. It's a battle about salvation and the gospel
Right.
and understanding that truth.
Exactly. That's a good point to end on. So thank you so much, Brian. I do appreciate the time that you took for this. And if ever anybody's going through Nebraska, stop by Broken Bow and go to the Boneyard Creation Museum. It'll be well worth the time. And you can see more of his stuff at creationinstruction.org. And if you want to see some of the best object lessons that you'll ever see, he spoke going to YouTube on TCCSA, and you'll see a ping pong ball go through an aluminum can and so many other things. And I've been in this creation thing 20 years, and I didn't see a lot of the stuff that Brian did, and your kids are going to love it. And that's one of the things we need to get this into the next generation. And so thank you, Brian, for helping the hydroplate and the gospel solidify people's faith. And may God bless your efforts, and have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you.